Hello friends, or maybe I should say greetings soldiers of the Republic. I'm Thomas Waters and welcome to my video series on revolutions and the making of the modern world. This series is about the history of revolutions over the past 2.5 centuries. Today I'd like to discuss some of the divisions, enmities and antagonisms that shaped the Spanish Civil War of 1936-9. These divisions matter enormously. They helped to fracture and doom the democratically elected Republican left coalition, or Popular Front as it was called, despite it beginning the war with control over about 2/3 of Spain, including most of the industrial areas. External support from the Soviet Union and around 35,000 idealistic international volunteers was not enough. Ultimately, the Republic was defeated by the nationalist right-wing rebel coalition of the army, landowners, capitalists, small proprietors and Catholics, which received considerable assistance from fascist Italy and Germany, as well as some additional support from the rightist dictatorship of neighbouring Portugal. The Spanish Civil War was among the most moving conflicts of the 20th century. At any rate, it was evoked in art, literature, film and song way beyond the Iberian Peninsula. For leftists, the Spanish Civil War was part of the international battle against the forces of capitalism, imperialism and fascism. As Joseph Stalin put it in a telegram published in the Soviet newspaper Pravda, the cause of Spain is not solely the cause of Spaniards, but the cause of all progressive and advanced humanity. The resonance of the Spanish Civil War also came from the catalogue of human suffering it visited upon the people of that country. 1.7 million people were conscripted by the Republicans and 1.2 million by the Nationalists. 200,000 soldiers died on the battlefields. Almost as many civilians were killed in reprisals, summary executions, massacres and atrocities committed by both sides, but particularly by the Nationalists. Artists, trade unionists, socialists, feminists and others were murdered by nationalist forces as they cut their way through Spain's former Republican strongholds, beginning in Andalusia, followed by the North and Basque Country, then Catalonia and Valencia, before the eventual fall of Madrid in spring 1939. Republicans too killed thousands of perceived internal enemies, including suspected counter-revolutionaries, as well as priests, monks and nuns. As the Civil War wore on, Republicans belonging to various anarchist, libertarian socialist and Trotskyist factions who were striving to establish their own revolutions within the Republic also became targets of Stalinist, Soviet-aligned communists. The Spanish Civil War's growing inter-left conflict was notoriously documented by one celebrated participant, the English writer George Orwell. In the beginning, when everyone was full of enthusiasm, Interparty Rivalry was perhaps not a bad thing, wrote Orwell, who arrived in Spain late in 1936. He quickly, though seemingly with little reflection, enlisted in a left communist Trotskyist militia, serving in the sleep-deprived, rumour-filled, lice-ridden trenches, yelling revolutionary slogans across the lines at the nationalists. Orwell had some military experience. He was frustrated by the lack of discipline in the revolutionary atmosphere that abolished social divisions along with deference and obedience to rank. When he wrote that the initial inter-party rivalry was not a bad thing, Orwell was thinking of different militias competing for success on the battlefield. He didn't have in mind the prohibitions, arrests, fights and purges that would come later, such as the May Days of 1937, when anarchists and communists killed each other in the streets of Barcelona. The differences between Spain's different Republican leftist factions had been covered up in the English left-wing press, Orwell noted, explaining his own ignorance on arriving in Spain. Yet these differences were profound and in some ways rather deep-rooted. There was a long-standing and fundamental division between revolutionaries acting in the name of the working class. This broad split divided statist and libertarian collectivists, separating, in our language, communists from anarchists. The division could be traced to conflict between the German philosopher Karl Marx and the Russian aristocrat Mikhail Bakunin, both of whom fought for intellectual dominance of the International Working Men's Association during the 1860s and 1870s. To summarise and simplify, Marx thought that the power of a strong, centralised state, acting in the interests of the workers, was necessary to ensure the proletariat's victory over the capitalist class. As Marx wrote in an 1874 critique of Bakunin's book Statism and Anarchy, the working class must employ forcible means, hence governmental means. Bakunin, by contrast, saw Marx and the transitional system he advocated of a dictatorship of the proletariat as intolerably authoritarian and likely to establish new injustices. As a result, though Bakunin and his anarchist followers advocated worker control and management of places of work, they also wanted to devolve power to local levels, base it on voluntary agreements, and ultimately smash government by compulsion and decree. Libertarian, anti-state socialism soon spread to Spain. The immediate cause of this was missions orchestrated by Bakunin and his supporters, but anarchist, anti-state socialism found fertile ground in Spain, partly because it chimed with the country's long-standing grievances and movements for federation and regional autonomy. 1870 saw the foundation of the Spanish Alliance of Social Democracy, which summed up its programme as, in politics, anarchist, in economy, collectivist, in religion, atheist. The militant anti-religious impulse of some of Spain's leftists helps to explain their defeat in the Civil War. Of course, it wasn't the only reason. The aircraft, tanks, weapons and troops provided by Italy and Germany gave the nationalists an enormous advantage, which they used to devastating effect on the Basque capital of Guernica. But by attacking churches and the clergy, leftists struck at the elemental and sacred values of many Spanish people. It allowed the nationalists to portray themselves as holy warriors and crusaders, despite the bloody reprisals they carried out on the ground, and it ensured the bishops and Vatican endorsed General Franco. The enormous enmity that anarchists and communists had for Roman Catholicism raises a wider point about the nature of revolutionary politics. It's common to say that Marxism is like a religion, but so too are other forms of revolutionary consciousness and practice, like some varieties of anarchism. Like conventional religions, they have their mantras, stories and dogmas. Like religions, revolutionary political movements proselytize, hold regular meetings and establish fellowships. Like religions, they have sects, splits and divisions, as well as inquisitions and heresies. Above all, perhaps, like religions, revolutionary creeds activate and call forth powerful, electrifying and deeply emotional human responses. To conclude, the enmity many Spanish leftists had for organised religion was a fatal tactical error. But it was always likely to occur because of the overlap and competition between revolutionary and religious styles of thinking.